Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and my lovely NBs. Today we're going to go into another matchup, this time going with Delthius going up against Kipo. So let's go ahead and dive right on in. So starting things up in the north, we have Delthius rocking the common folk, while Kipo going over to the southeast position will be rocking the long coats. So this is going to be a pretty standard deck between the both of them. Both of them are going to go for the Squizzard composition. We are seeing both going 2 tier 2s with the boar, and Delthius going for a fox as a secondary tier 3, while the wolf will be the secondary tier 3. And for the tier 2s, they're both going to be going Cam Falcon respectively. Now going over to looking into what we have, it just seems like that this is going to be where most of the matchup is going to be, which is completely fine. There's not really much to go on over when it comes to the mills. Delthius has this nice one right here to be given it over to. Meanwhile, for Kipo has one in the back that can be defended very well, while the third base for both of them are basically going to be non-existent because they're both like dead set in the middle, and it'll be difficult for either one of them to go through. Now, with the fact that the map is just so short, since this is just nothing but dead space over here, I think the only thing that they can be used for is to possibly do a little sneak attack for the Falcons to fly over and to go ahead and get what they need to make a decent enough battle here. But I think the only way you can set that up is if you put the Falcons on this end. Speaking of tier 2, we are seeing that cams are going to be putting out for both sides as Delthius puts it at tier 2, probably in response of Kipo's tier 2, as it's about to get ready to be built, and the first one is going to be built pretty soon. Meanwhile, we do see that both sides are going to be going to different tier 1s to start things off, with Delthius going Squizzard, now adding in the squirrel. Meanwhile, we're just going to see some more squirrels being built over to Kipo. Now, with a combination of Squizzard, you could probably give it more so towards Delthius, and Delthius actually going to be a little bit of a gremlin here, trying to go ahead and get this quick target to possibly look into get anything, but instead we'll be getting back as the cam is going to try and defend off of it. We are hearing, I believe that was a second mill being sent out over to Delthius. So Delthius pretty much has a pretty good grasp on trying to keep Kipo on his toes, as we will go ahead and look into the graph real quick. As we see Delthius doing really good, trying to stay ahead into the army, but Kipo is going to go into the early, well, as I say that, Delthius goes in and bumps up into the economy himself. But right now, both sides are looking to possibly go into a 16 farm matchup from what it looks like. Though Delthius with a quick sell, actually going to go ahead and dive into the tier 3 and look to possibly end the game early with the tier 3 boar coming out. And I'm sure Kipo is going to go ahead and spot this. It's going to be a very important one, as he does he see it? Ooh, he might not be able to see it from there. We might have to see from his perspective. And he didn't. He did not spot that tier 3, so that's huge. That is a huge situation there for Kipo. He's going to have to... I don't think he's very aware of what's actually going to be heading his way, and that's going to be pretty big because the tier 3 is going to be popping up right now, and... if Kipo's gonna have to find it in its next spin-off, which I think he will do right here. He is going to see it, and that's going to pretty much put him into panic mode because now he knows he's on a really tight timer. I don't think it's gonna be good. He's gonna have enough time to build a T3 of his own, and he is gonna go ahead and go into a lot more squirrels here, or a lot more lizards to possibly get a good combination going. But like, for a mass tier 1 army, you'd want a boar, and that's what's going to be that could be the decisive victory if Kipo is able to go ahead and get this battle in on time. And we are seeing the boar coming out in the late game, and we're going to see Kipo going into the full-fledged retreat, and that might be the game here because of the fact that there really isn't anything on Kipo's end to possibly defend this. But right now, he is going to try to do his best. He does have quite a couple of Falcons here. He may base race because he doesn't really have much of a choice. And right now, we are seeing that there isn't really much that he could do as the board is doing all the work it can as the board does go down. But there's still quite a few tier 2 left on Kipo's end. So Kipo could have a good opportunity to counterattack, but Kipo will decide against it. Will instead go ahead and go into the forward bases, get as many lizards out as possible, because I would imagine that, yep, the boar is getting sold and he's going to be replacing it with the Falcons here. And Kipo may have dodged a bullet here as he's going to go ahead and get in for the kill. But right now, we are seeing the cams doing a lot of the work. But it might be a little too late, as I don't think Delthius has enough army to go ahead and defend this, as he's going ahead and lose quite a few warrants. He already lost a pig. He's going to lose his second pig here. And right now, Delthius is trying to do Kipo's trying to do as much as he can against Delthius, and he's finally going to go ahead and retreat. But he did take out quite a good amount of Delthius's army, as well as a good number of farms as well. But now Kipo is looking to probably try and bounce back, as Kipo's going to try and finish this up right here and now. And I think that's going to be a Kipo's game, as he's able to... Yeah, he will take this victory as he barely scrapes by. So he will get the first game of 5. GG's over to Kipo. So let's go ahead and dive into game number 2. So going over to the west side, we have Delthius as the common folk, while Kipo down in the south position as the Longcoats. That's the name. So we are seeing a big change up here for Delthius. We are not going to be seeing any tier 3 from Delthius in this case. This time replacing the board with the balloon, and of course deciding to go ahead and swap from lizard to the mole and going 3 tier 3s instead. So that's going to be interesting to see what Delthius is going to do. I think he's going to go for a more pokey type of style with this composition, really trying to go ahead and focus on base racing, I suppose. Meanwhile, for Kipo, he is going to be going with the same deck. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But now we're looking into the mill situation, and honestly, I gotta say, it's pretty even. I think the only one you can give the advantage to Delthius, considering that Delthius has 4 easy mills to go ahead and put on, and plus the wall balloon is going to be super helpful to try and extend that far into the game. So if it gets scrappy, you can easily give it to Delthius because of that 4th mill. And there is a campfire Kipo can pretty much claim at any time, but I would assume that he would want to hold off on getting that until much later on in the game. And he's going to have to be very aggressive to make sure that 4th mill doesn't get popped up for Delthius. So with that in mind, we are going to see for the tier 1s, Kipo starting off with the lizards. Meanwhile, Delthius is starting off with the squirrels to open things up between the two of them. So right now, both sides just wanting to go ahead and dive into their tier 1s. And as I say that, Kipo decided to go ahead and buy a tier 2 with the cams. And the cams are really powerful in this instance. I will say that this is going to be an interesting case here, as... Actually, we are seeing that another campfire is going to be attacked here, just so we can probably use for a little bit later. Though that one's a little bit close over to Delthius, and Delthius can easily take that out as many times as you can, at any time that he really wants. But seems to be that Kipo's just go ahead and try and take out as many mini cabins as he can, so that way he doesn't have to worry about the late game situation, because that could be a possibility, as we are seeing that Delthius is going to dive into his second mid, but also putting in a couple of mole warrants as well, possibly for defending purposes, because I don't think that there's a real way to attack this. He is going to try and defend it, as Kipo does see it and wants to go after this, but some good call there to go ahead and send out the moles just in case Kipo was going to try and attack and take away a good amount of that food, because that is about 180 food that is being used here. And now Delthius is looking to possibly go in for an attack himself, as we are seeing quite a lot of lizards, but the cams are going to be the big case, as we are seeing the cam doing some work before it goes down quickly. And it looks like that Kipo is going to defend this very well. And so Delphi is going to have to go ahead and retreat and try and defend his own base, because Kipo does have a bit of an opening. He is going to go ahead and try and take this fight. He is going to have some reinforcements come in a little bit as well. And so that's going to take out both of those pigs. And he's going to lose those Warrens. And that's going to be game number 2 going over to Kipo. So now we're going to go ahead and dive into game number 3. So will Kipo go ahead and get into the full sweep as he plays the common folk up north, while Delthius is trying to avoid that, possibly getting into a reverse sweep himself as he is down south as the common folk. Now we're seeing another big change up here for Delthius. This time he is going to go ahead and dip his toes into the fox discomposition. Meanwhile, Kipo keeping it the same as we go ahead and dive into the mills. A lot of mills to work with on both ends. You could definitely give it more so to Kipo here, considering that he does have 1, 2, 3 that he can easily acquire if he wants, depending on how he wants to set up his army. Meanwhile, Delthius really only has 1 real one available, and plus this cabin. But to get a third one, he's gonna have to go out of his. He's gonna have to really stretch it out forward to really get a third base. So it's gonna be a little bit more difficult for him, especially considering the fact that that mill is already with these 2 as well. So getting into it, we are seeing that Delphius is actually going to go ahead and get into the second mill very early without any defense. Well, he does finally put down a lizard, but I can imagine that he is not going to worry about putting in any farms for it, as he is going to let Kipo is going to go ahead and just try and build up as much as he can. He is going to try and catch up. Well, try and match over to the greed that Delthius is doing in the early goings. But meanwhile, Delthius will have to be a little careful, because I can imagine that Kipo would like to get into a third. Well, would like to go into a third one. We're seeing more greed from Delthius once again, going down to up to 4 farms this time. We'll see how Kipo responds, as he's just trying to pay attention and get into it. And he feels safe to go ahead and just go fully, even more greedier than Delthius here, as Delthius is going to be the first one to put his tier 2 in the cams in. Because I can imagine that Kipo going mass squirrel shouldn't come to no surprise. But with the fact that lizard is also coming into play is going to be something to keep note of, because now Delthius is going to be behind on eco, while Kipo is going to pretty much be very hefty on the economy lead. As you can see, the amount of income that's being put right now on Kipo's end is pretty astronomical at this point. So Delthius does need to try and match this, and he will do that, but he's going to be pretty sorely well, I wouldn't say it's kind of even Steven, considering the number of tier 1 that Kipo has compared to Delthius's tier, like having a bunch of tier 2 in the cams. We are seeing that the cam is going to be taken care of, as the campfire is going to be pretty important later on. We see that Kipo is going to scalp this. But going over to Kipo's end, we are seeing that a wolf's going to come out here, and I'm not sure if Delthius saw that, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, he did, because he put down the fox immediately in that case. And he is going to go ahead and get into tier 2 now to pretty much counter the boar, but Kipo is going to go ahead and dive into the boar and the wolf. The wolf's going to get paid for already. It looks like Kipo's going to go big or go home, as Delthius is going to see everything, and I'm sure he's going to try and get into more, and he is going to sell the Fox Warren just to go mass tier 1. I'm not sure if this was the best idea, to be honest with you, because I know that he's probably just wanting to go ahead and get ready for the wolf buff that's going to be coming up pretty soon. But with the fact that the boar is not going to get paid for, he is blocked at the moment, and there's not much that Kipo can really do. He is going to just allow it to pay it naturally instead of selling things off, and the battle's going to get commenced. The wolf's coming in late, but a lot of it's going to get cleaned up. It doesn't look like the wolf was really needed, and that's going to be the sweep. So Kipo will take this one 3-0. GG's all around.